You are in an elevator, a sleek, modern box of steel and glass, ascending the spine of a skyscraper that pierces the clouds. 100 floors up. You're holding your phone, your keys, a cup of hot coffee. The city below is a silent, sprawling map of lights and dreams. You feel the familiar, gentle hum of the machinery. Suddenly, a sound rips through the calm. Not a snap. It's deeper, more violent. A deafening metallic scream of tortured steel echoing from far above. The floor doesn't just lurch. It vanishes beneath your feet. The cables have been cut. You are plunging in absolute, terrifying, silent freefall. Time stretches and contorts. Panic is a distant drumbeat, not yet arrived. In this surreal bubble of suspended animation, you notice something impossible, something beautiful. The hot coffee, escaping its cup, doesn't splash and scald. It blossoms outwards, a perfect, quivering brown sphere suspended in the air before your eyes. Catching the light, the keys you've let go of don't clatter to the floor. They hover patiently beside you, a small metallic constellation. Your phone drifts from your hand, rotating slowly, weightlessly. In this metal coffin plummeting towards certain annihilation, you are an astronaut. You are utterly, completely, miraculously weightless. In this box, in this moment of ultimate descent, there is no up, no down. There is no gravity. This moment, this terrifying, beautiful, impossible vision, it is not the beginning of an end. It is the beginning of the universe as we know it. It is the happiest thought a man ever had. And my question to you, the one that will anchor our entire journey today, is this. How can the greatest secret of creation be hidden not in a moment of triumph, but inside our greatest, most primal fear? Stay with me. God does not play dice with the universe. These weren't the words of a revolutionary. They were the words of a king, trying to fortify the walls of a kingdom that was already being overrun. This was the protest of Albert Einstein, the father of modern physics, the man who bent space and time with the power of his mind, as he stood at the precipice of a new reality, quantum mechanics, and found himself unable to accept its chaotic, uncertain truths. Think about the profound irony. The man whose entire career was a testament to radical imagination, the ultimate questioner, found a question he refused to engage with. He had become a victim of his own success. He had unlocked the magnificent, predictable clockwork of the cosmos, only to be told that at its heart, the universe was a game of chance. It was a failure of imagination, from the most imaginative mind in human history. A tragic final act, where the rebel becomes the establishment. He gave us the keys to a new kingdom, but refused to enter one of its most important, most bewildering rooms. But we are not here today to dissect the end of his journey. To understand the man, to understand ourselves, we must go back. Not to his childhood violin lessons, not to his struggles in school. We have to go back to that elevator. That imaginary, plunging elevator where he found a truth so profound, so earth-shattering, that it would cost him a decade of his life, his marriage, and his sanity to prove to the world and to himself. The question isn't just about physics. It's about the architecture of breakthrough. It's a blueprint for solving the problems in our own lives that feel monolithic, unsolvable, and absolute. Albert Einstein. The name itself feels heavy, doesn't it? It's a synonym for a level of genius that seems alien, almost divine. E=mc², the theory of relativity. A wild-haired, gentle-eyed icon whose brain was literally preserved and studied after his death. As if we might find the secrets of the cosmos pickled in a jar. We all know the legend. The humble patent clerk who daydreamed his way into rewriting the laws of reality. His success is an Everest of human achievement. A peak so high we feel we can only admire it from afar. But the stories we tell are sanitized. They are linear, comfortable narratives. Boy genius. Struggles a bit against a rigid system, has a miracle year in 1905, and then ascends to his rightful place as a global icon. It's clean, it's inspiring, and it's mostly a lie. A convenient fiction we tell ourselves because the truth is far more terrifying and far more useful. The real story is a messy, brutal, 10-year mental war, fought in the trenches of his own mind, in near-total intellectual isolation. It's a story of profound, gut-wrenching failure, of chasing mathematical ghosts down dead-end alleyways for years at a time. It's a story of a mind so incandescently brilliant that it became its own prison, its own labyrinth. This brings us to our big question for today, the question that cuts to the heart of all significant achievement. What if the key to a monumental breakthrough isn't a single brilliant idea, but a relentless, almost masochistic obsession with a single, simple, and seemingly absurd image? What if the path to an abundance mindset isn't about thinking bigger and grander, but about having the courage to feel the sensation of falling smaller, of becoming nothing? And how did Einstein's agonizing journey reveal that the greatest leaps forward are found not by adding more knowledge and complexity, but by having the audacity to subtract one fundamental truth we thought was untouchable? Let's use our imagination to jump in time. Forget 1905, his celebrated Annus Mirabilis, his miracle year. Let's land in 1911, Berlin, 6 years after he published his world-changing papers on special relativity, the photoelectric effect, and Brownian motion. On the surface, he has won. He is a celebrated professor, lauded by the giants of physics. He should have been on top of the world, but internally, he was in hell, a private, intellectual hell of his own making. Special relativity was beautiful, a perfect piece of cosmic architecture. But it had a fatal flaw, a gaping, structural hole. It described the universe as a perfect stage, but only for actors moving at a constant speed. The moment one of them sped up, slowed down, or turned the moment acceleration entered the picture, the entire stage collapsed. The equations broke, and the single greatest, most constant accelerator in all of our lives, the one thing that governs every thrown ball, every falling apple, every planet in its orbit, is gravity. His grand theory of everything couldn't explain the simple act of falling down. It was a universe with a missing God, and this fact haunted him. For the next 8 years, from 1907 to 1915, Einstein voluntarily walked into a mental labyrinth from which there seemed to be no escape. This was not a period of gentle contemplation. It was a brutal, grinding slog. He would fill notebooks with complex tensor calculus, equations so advanced he had to enlist the help of his mathematician friend Marcel Grossman, only to spend weeks proving to himself that the entire path was a dead end. He described the experience to a friend as a torment, feeling the exhilarating euphoria of a breakthrough in the evening, only to discover a catastrophic logical or mathematical error the next morning that shattered everything. The cycle repeated, endlessly. This wasn't a quest for knowledge. It was a deeply personal war. His daily discipline was not the easy discipline of inspiration, but the hard-won discipline of showing up to the battlefield of his own mind, day after day, and getting slaughtered. To get through it, he had to stay hard, to cultivate a mental toughness that bordered on obsession. The price for this obsession was immense and tragically human. His first marriage to Mileva Maric, a brilliant physicist in her own right, was disintegrating under the weight of his singular focus. The silence in their home must have been deafening, filled only by the scratching of his pen on paper. He was a distant, preoccupied father. He poured every ounce of his life force, every calorie of his mental energy, into this single, monolithic problem. And in this labyrinth, he faced a formidable enemy. This enemy wasn't a rival scientist or a skeptical critic. It was far older, far more powerful, and far more intimate. I call it the ghost of Newton. It wasn't the man, Sir Isaac Newton, of course. It was his shadow. A shadow that stretched for 250 years and defined the very shape of reality for every human on Earth. It was the unshakable, common-sense foundation that Newton had laid. Gravity was a force, an invisible, instantaneous rope pulling things towards each other. It was simple. It was elegant. It was obvious. It was true. And it was this obvious truth that was the very wall Einstein kept smashing his head against. Every equation he formulated, every path he explored, was shackled by the unspoken assumption that gravity was a pull. The ghost of Newton whispered in his ear at every turn, "This is how the world works. You can refine the details, but you cannot question the foundation." It was the ultimate common sense prison. To find his answer, to escape the labyrinth, Einstein would have to do more than solve a problem. He would have to become a heretic. He would have to exorcise the most powerful ghost in the history of science. So what do you do? What do you do when every logical path, every ounce of hard work, every expert consultation leads you to the same brick wall? The conventional motivational advice, the chorus of our hustle culture, is to push harder, to grind more, to double down on your discipline and outwork the problem. But Einstein's 8-year ordeal in the wilderness teaches us a profoundly different and more powerful lesson. A lesson that goes against the grain of almost every productivity guru. The lesson is this: when logic becomes a prison, the only way out is through absurdity. When the fortress of a problem seems impenetrable, the answer isn't a bigger battering ram. It's finding a secret, forgotten tunnel that looks like madness. You don't just push harder on the locked front door. You have to stop, turn around, and ask if the building itself is even real. You don't try to optimize the existing system. You have to find the courage to burn the entire system to the ground in your mind. His breakthrough didn't come from a more complex equation. It came from a moment of pure, childlike fantasy. It came from the absurd image of a man in a falling elevator. It was a complete, radical surrender of established logic to pure imagination. That is the kind of strategic thinking that doesn't just win the game. It changes the rules for everyone. It's a philosophy of innovation that is timeless. Let's rewind again, back through the years of torment, to the eye of the storm, back to 1905. Bern, Switzerland. Einstein isn't a revered professor in a prestigious university. He's a third-class technical examiner at the Swiss Patent Office. A seemingly mundane, bureaucratic job. But this office was his secret weapon. It was his sanctuary. It was his dojo. Imagine him. A young man with piercing, curious eyes, sitting at a simple wooden desk. The air smells of ink, oiled machinery, and old paper. His job is to analyze the inventions of others' schematics for new types of electromagnetic devices, plans for industrial machinery. It was work that required a sharp, analytical mind, but not a revolutionary one. He would often finish his duties in a mere 2 or 3 hours, and for the rest of the day, paid by the Swiss government, he would lean back in his chair, close his eyes, and journey into the cosmos. He conducted his Gedanken Experimente, his thought experiments. This was the true origin of his incredible self-development journey. He wasn't in a state-of-the-art lab. He had no equipment, no particle accelerators, no research grants. His only tool was the most powerful technology in the universe, a curious human mind, unleashed from convention. His study motivation came not from a professor, but from the universe itself. It was here, in the quiet hum of the patent office, that he cultivated the unique philosophy that would later give him the strength to defeat the ghost of Newton. It wasn't about accumulating facts or memorizing formulas. It was a principle he later called holy curiosity. He approached the universe not as a dutiful student trying to pass a test, but as a skeptical detective arriving at a crime scene where everyone is a potential suspect. Nothing could be trusted. Every witness, every piece of evidence, especially the ones that seemed most obvious, like the constant flow of time or the nature of gravity, had to be cross-examined with ruthless intensity. He asked simple, almost foolish questions. Questions that other serious physicists had dismissed. What would it be like to ride on a beam of light? What does a person in a falling elevator really feel? In those moments, he wasn't driven by a grand, purpose-driven mission to change the world. He was driven by the pure, unadulterated, joyful itch of a question that needed scratching. Now, let's turn our Flaw spotlight on this icon to make him truly human. Einstein's greatest strength, his unshakable confidence in his own intuition and logical path, was also the seed of his greatest intellectual weakness. His ability to isolate a problem and trust his own mind above all other authorities is precisely how he formulated relativity. But decades later, this same quality calcified into stubbornness. When quantum mechanics exploded onto the scene, with its bizarre, counterintuitive principles of uncertainty and probability, he couldn't accept it. The idea that the universe, at its most fundamental level, was governed by chance was abhorrent to him. It offended his belief in a rational, orderly cosmos. And so he uttered that famous tragic line, "God does not play dice." The man who had courageously dethroned the common sense of Newton had, in his old age, created a new common sense of his own, and he was unwilling to see it challenged. It's a humbling and deeply human lesson in personal development. The revolutionary mindset of today can become the rigid dogma of tomorrow. We must always be willing to question our own most cherished conclusions. This is all fascinating, but how can we, who are not Einstein, use this? How do we transform this epic story of cosmic discovery into a practical tool for our own lives, for our businesses, our relationships, our own impossible problems? We can distill his method into a practical formula for breakthrough thinking. I call it the elevator method. It's a three-step process for achieving radical clarity and engineering a perspective shift. Step 1. Define the force. Take a moment. In your life, your business, or your personal struggles, what is the one law of gravity you believe is absolute and unbreakable? The one core assumption that your entire reality is built upon? Maybe it's, I need a traditional university degree to be considered successful, or I have to work 80 hours a week and sacrifice my well-being to get ahead. Or in a relationship, if we argue, it means we are failing. Identify that core, unquestioned belief. Give it a name. That is your Newton's law. It feels solid, real, and non-negotiable. Step 2. Enter the elevator and cut the cable. This is a pure thought experiment, a mental sandbox. Find a quiet space, and in your mind, place that belief in an elevator. Now, cut the cable. Intentionally, vividly, imagine a world where that belief is suddenly, completely, 100% false. Don't ask how it's possible. That's logic trying to trap you again. Simply suspend disbelief and imagine it is false. What if you could become massively successful and respected without that specific degree? What if the real key to exponential progress was working a focused 30 hours a week, with more rest and focus on yourself? What if arguing was actually a sign of a healthy, engaged relationship? In this moment, you are in mental freefall. You are weightless, unbound by the tyranny of your own assumptions. Step 3. Describe what you see from weightlessness. From this new, untethered perspective, what does the world look like? What opportunities, once invisible, now flicker at the edges of your vision? What actions, which once seemed reckless or impossible, now seem logical, even obvious? This is where you must have a pen and paper. Write down everything you see from this state, no matter how strange or foolish it seems. You are brainstorming with a liberated version of yourself. That feeling of lightness and new possibility is the feeling of a breakthrough. It's the feeling of seeing the world not as a set of rigid forces holding you down, but as a fabric, a medium that you can navigate and even shape. This is how you set truly smart goals. Goals born not from limitation, but from newfound freedom. We began this journey together in a plunging elevator. An image of pure terror, the ultimate end. And now, after walking through the labyrinth of Einstein's mind, we can finally see it for what it truly is, the happiest thought a man ever had. Einstein's earth-shattering realization, the one that finally exorcised the ghost of Newton, was this: the man in the elevator is not feeling weightless as an illusion. In his small, sealed, plunging frame of reference, he is weightless. The state of being in freefall within a gravitational field is perfectly, mathematically, philosophically indistinguishable from being in a region of space with no gravity at all. This was the key that unlocked the entire cosmos. Gravity was not a force. It was never an invisible rope pulling us down. Gravity, he realized, is the shape of space and time itself. The sun is not pulling the Earth with a cosmic string. The sun, in its immense mass, is creating a deep depression in the four-dimensional fabric of spacetime, like a bowling ball on a trampoline. The Earth isn't being pulled. It's simply following the straightest possible path through that curved space, a path we perceive as an orbit. The Earth is, in a very real sense, constantly falling. The man in the elevator isn't falling through space. He is following the natural, effortless contour of a curved reality. He isn't falling, he is arriving. That shocking image of death was, in fact, the ultimate symbol of liberation. Liberation from a 250-year-old lie that had imprisoned physics. The entire meaning of the image was inverted, from an end to a beginning. And the exact same is true for us. The moments in our lives that feel like a freefall, the business that fails, the end of a long relationship, the loss of a defined path, they feel like the end. They feel like the cold, hard force of gravity has finally won, pulling us down into the ground. But what if they aren't an end? What if they are just a profound, terrifying, and necessary shift in perspective, a cutting of the cables of our own assumptions? What if, in those moments of loss and uncertainty, we are finally, truly weightless, free from the forces of expectation, of tradition, of who we thought we were supposed to be, free to see the world as it truly is, a dynamic, malleable fabric that we can navigate, not a rigid prison we must endure. Be grateful for your falls. Be grateful for the moments the cables snap. They are not punishments, they are invitations. Invitations to experience a reality without the crushing weight of your own certainties. Invitations to see the true shape of your universe. True self-development isn't about frantically climbing higher. It's about understanding the nature of the fall. This profound spiritual journey requires immense discipline and a deep well of study motivation to understand the universe within ourselves. It teaches us that the ultimate abundance mindset is finding peace not at the triumphant peak, but in the midst of the terrifying plunge, knowing that you are on the exact path you need to be on, following a curve you couldn't see before. You just need to be brave enough to open your eyes during the fall. What cable needs to snap in your life for you to finally feel weightless? Share your story in the comments below. I read every single one. If this journey resonated with you, subscribe to the 500 Millionaire Blueprint. And let's continue to explore the architecture of what's possible. Until next time, stay hard, and don't be afraid to fall upwards.